Do you ever run into the issue that there's more than one knife that you're interested in buying and you can't decide which one it is? How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And in the comment section down below, list the knives that you couldn't decide between and which one you ended up going with. Today we're talking about this guy, the Benchmade Shootout, which came to me via the Apex Pass Around group. Huge shout out to them and for the channel that sent this to the pass around group. Zach's Stuff, I believe, is where it came from. Shout out to him for giving the rest of us the chance to check this out. This is cool. I have experience with OTFs, but the OTFs that I have experience with are the microtech, ultratech, and the microtech Cypher. And it seems like OTFs are kind of an acquired taste because they're aggressive. They're out the front. They're spring loaded. People see these and they're like, oh my gosh, you're going to put this through something or someone. And so be that as it may, a lot of people don't buy them. And even the ones that do, maybe don't even carry them, which makes them collector's pieces and also makes this one a little bit more unique because it is quite obviously supposed to be used. And we're going to get into why. But as I handle this Benchmade Shootout, it makes me wonder, how well does it stand up against a microtech? Can it hold its own? Is that even a fair comparison? Today, we aim to find out. Let's check out the Benchmade Shootout. Hey, and check this out. Here is the Benchmade Shootout. Now, I understand that many of you do not like unboxings, but some people really do care about what's in the box. In this case, it's very simple, and we'll get this out of the way. In the box is foam insert pouch with the Shootout. Now, this is not a brand new review unit. This is, again, a knife that came from the Apex Pass Around group. So is it possible that things have been taken out of the box before it got to me? Absolutely, but that's what was in the box. What was also in the package that got to me was all these Said Stevie stickers, which are pretty dang cool. Shout out to Said Stevie. He's the one that had it last, and he hooked me up. I guess he understands that I love stickers, so thank you to Said Stevie, and I'll be including a few of these in my next live stream giveaway, which make sure you tune in for those. My live streams are every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, and then, of course, 10 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's talk about it. This is the Benchmade Shootout OTF, and it is not the first OTF that Benchmade has come out with. They've come out with others like the Benchmade Autocrat, which are honestly really geared towards, you know, going up against microtech. And honestly, anytime a company comes out with an OTF knife, they are going up against microtech. Microtech is not the most amazing out the front knife, but they are kind of the industry standard. They set the bar, and either the OTF that you're looking at is a microtech, or it's better than a microtech, or it's not better than a microtech. But any way you spin it, they are the industry standard. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today is the fact that this does not seem like it is directly going up against microtech in any other fashion other than it's an OTF knife. But before we get into that, I want to go over the specs real quick. So overall length is coming in at about 8¼ inches. Closed, we're looking at about 4.7, so about 4¾ on the handle scales. It's got CPM Cruwear, which a lot of new Benchmade models do, and I actually really like that because they're reporting the HRC on these is between 63 and 65, which is pretty optimal for Cruwear, and it's just a great user steel. It's got a PVD coated finish on the blade, and these handle scales are a material called CF Elite. If you don't know what CF Elite is essentially carbon fiber filled nylon. Yeah, I'll tell you right now, they call it carbon fiber filled nylon. It feels like plastic. It is what it is. That's just my opinion. So With all of that being said, it is an American-made OTF, and this costs right around $300. This is part of Benchmade's Black Series, meaning that, you know, it was made with law enforcement in mind, and I get it. This is a very law enforcement-y type of knife. There's no two ways around it. But I think that this could actually be a useful knife for more than just people that are in law enforcement. And I'm going to tell you why. First and foremost, the blade shape is a Tonto blade shape. And I'm not sure if this has been sharpened before, but it kind of looks like it. I could be wrong. Either way, Cruwear is a good user steel because it's a powder metallurgy tool steel that can be heat treated to a high extent. And that means that you get really, really good properties out of it when it's properly heat treated, like really good edge retention, a decent wear resistance, and of course, it's not too terribly difficult to sharpen. So I love the fact that they're using Cruwear because it means that this knife was not just meant to sit in a display case, it was meant to be used. Let's talk about the ergonomics real quick. So the ergos on here they're you know what? They're decent. Reverse grip is not actually that great, mainly because this trigger button right here has this really, really prominent ridge. And so if you go to reverse grip it, and I know this is not everyone's preferred grip, but it is a grip, and some people do use knives in that grip, your palm is going to land right on the apex of that trigger. And then, of course, if you wanted to get more purchase by putting your thumb on the back, oh no, there it is, the glass breaker. So reverse grip is kind of a no-go. What about saber grip? Well, you know what? It's not bad. There is no choke up point, which is fine. You don't typically see those on OTFs anyways. But with other OTFs, you can usually rest your thumb on the button and kind of use that for your thumb rest, which those buttons typically have some kind of texturing. But in this case, again, that apex of that really aggressive looking button kind of forces your thumb back, which, you know what, that's okay. But to me, with large to extra large size hands, I get this awkward grip. Like this handle scale should be fitting my hand much better, but it seems like this is the only comfortable way to do that. So if you are someone that likes a saber grip, you kind of have to do this thing where you go around the button and then put it on the spine of a blade that does not have any jimping whatsoever. It is, while talking about the spine of the blade, not super thick behind the edge, so your thumb doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of real estate there, but that's okay because it keeps it thin and user friendly. Where a lot of microtechs are a bit thicker with a bigger medial ridge or a bigger spine, this is thinner, and so it's going to make for much better slicing, but there's less real estate if you do try to go for this grip and move your, finger beyond Mount Everest right here. The pocket clip, fantastic. I gotta say, Benchmade did a phenomenal job on their pocket clips because this looks just like a lot of MXG deep carry clips or Lynch Northwest clips that you can get for Spydercos. I actually don't mind this stamped clip design. I think it's very user friendly and it doesn't hurt the ergonomics in a regular grip like this. Being a Tanto means that it is going to be thicker towards the edge for longer than it would if it was a drop point or even a sheep's foot. And so it kind of continues that user theme, and I really see what Benchmade is going for here. Now, just off the hand feel test, this does not feel like a $300 knife. It doesn't. I get it. CF Elite handle scales, carbon fiber filled nylon. I get it. Very tough, very wear resistant for the working man who goes out there every day cutting the rope, feeding the cattle on the farm. I get it. You don't need something to look pretty when you're using it all the time. And this is one of those handle scales that doesn't look pretty, probably even when it's brand spanking new. So you're not going to feel too bad when you go out and abuse this thing. So let's go ahead and get into the comparison then, shall we? This is my microtech Spartan. The Spartan is essentially a double Tanto. Now, ignore the tip of mine. This one is a couple years old and it's been through some stuff. It's seen some stuff, but the Spartan is a double-edged Tanto. Microtechs are also known to be very, very abuse resistant. And if you've ever seen any of X-Ray's videos on microtechs, he abuses the ever-loving crap out of his microtechs, and it makes it so that they, like, you have to admit a microtech will last through a lot. And then of course they have that lifetime warranty, which, I mean, is it better than Benchmade's? I don't know. But anytime we're talking about an OTF, we need to be realistic, because you can also buy a microtech ultratech for around the same price as that Benchmade Shootout. So which one should you buy? And I released a short on this, and some people said microtech, almost no one said Benchmade, and some people said neither, which I get it. Whether you like microtech or not, because of whatever reason or not, you know, maybe you just don't like them. I totally get that. But let's talk about the similarities. Well, you know, you have a firing button. They're both double action or dual action. I always get the two confused. They both have glass breakers, and they both have these deep carry pocket clips. Now, I will say this: while I like the look of the microtech clip better, the functionality of the clip on the Benchmade Shootout is actually better. It's more simple, but it is a better functionality in my opinion. Not that I've had issues with either putting them in or out of my pocket, but it is what it is. The glass breaker on the Benchmade just seems puny, and I don't know. Whereas the glass breaker on the microtech, in my opinion, with the tungsten steel ball, and I'm not necessarily sure if that's just hardened steel or if that's also tungsten, but the glass breaker on a microtech is just kind of iconic at this point. But in my opinion, altogether not necessary. How often have you had to break glass in case of emergency? I know it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, but seriously, how many times in your life have you ever used or had need of a glass breaker? If you're someone that's needed one more frequently than most people should, pop in the comment section down below and let me know what happened, because that sounds like an interesting story. Let's talk about the firing buttons real quick. A lot of people complain on microtechs that they're hard to fire. I don't have that issue, and the community seems to agree that as long as you carry your microtech regularly and get used to it, after about 2 weeks, it's not going to be an issue. Now, I've handed this knife to full-grown men who do have an issue, and they struggle getting that to deploy, and they don't get it, and they go, oh my gosh, it's finally out. I think that for a beginner, someone that's not used to out the front knives, this is going to be a lot easier to deploy, because it's much more clear how to use that button. I think the issue with a lot of people is that they see this and they feel like they have to push down. And when they do that, it doesn't actually make it easier to deploy, and they end up pushing with the pad of their thumb instead of with the tip. Whereas if you just utilize the tip on a microtech, no problem. Now, that's a very highly debated point. You know, a lot of people think that the microtech button is too hard to deploy. I don't have that opinion, but others do. With the Benchmade Shootout, it is quite obvious. You ramp up your thumb here to Mount Everest, and then on the back, you really only have one option, because if you try to push down on the top of this, well, you know what, let's call it a trigger. If you try to push down on the top of this trigger, it's rather uncomfortable. So naturally you're like, oh no, I'll just use the side, which is what you should be doing on any OTF deployment button trigger thing, because that's just, it just works so much better that way. It does have adequate amounts of jimping here, not like the legendary stepped jimping that you get on a microtech, but you know, there it is. Ultimately, how do I feel about the materials? Well, you know, honestly, I think that the CF Elite handle scales, I get that they're a wear resistant material. I get that they're going to allow people to not feel bad about using their knife, and you should never feel bad about using your knife, by the way. If you bought it to be used, use it and accept the wear patina that comes over time. But on here, remember, it's $300, and the microtech is no less American made than the Benchmade. At the end of the day, it just looks better, and the fit and finish is better. The handle scales on here are aluminum, which are also very wear resistant and will hold up over time. This uses Bowler M390, and they both have blade play. However, the blade play on a microtech is not that bad as far as OTFs go, whereas the blade play on this is a lot worse. Okay, I hate blade play in my regular folding knives. In OTFs, it's more understandable and a lot easier to ignore because you just have to accept that if you don't have, you know, a Grant and Gavin Hawk deadlock, then you're going to have some blade play. But, you know, for the rest of us peasants buying $300 OTFs, you're going to have to expect some blade play. So there is a lot more blade play in this Benchmade Shootout. And, you know, do I think that it's an issue? No, but it doesn't necessarily help the case that this is $300. When I hold the microtech, ultratech, it feels like I got what I paid for. And you know what? You're welcome to disagree with me. This is just one man's opinion and it's all subjective. But with a microtech, ultratech, you really, at least I really feel like you get what you pay for. When I hold this, I feel like this should be a $200 OTF. At 200 bucks, I am extremely happy with this. At 300 bucks, I'm probably going to put it back on the shelf and go buy myself a microtech. Guys, this is not a promo for microtech. I don't have a million microtechs. They didn't pay me to say any of this. This is just my opinion. So if my opinion upsets you, good. Go down to the comment section and plead your case. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. I think a lot of people will agree that this Benchmade Shootout is overpriced. Benchmade is raising their prices this year, not necessarily giving us anything new. But my judgments on this knife are based off of my personal opinion of how it looks, feels, and performs. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo, there's a button for you too. Now is your time. And if you want to stick around to see the grail or garbage ranking for this knife, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.